Ja, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, herzlich willkommen in Berlin. Ich freue mich, dass wir unser informelles Außenministertreffen im Rahmen unserer Präsidentschaft heute in Berlin ausrichten können. In Corona-Zeiten ist die Organisation einer solchen Veranstaltung nicht einfach. Wir haben ein sehr strenges Hygienekonzept. Wir sagen Ja zu Physical Distance and No zu Political Distance. Und deshalb freue ich mich, dass es möglich ist, auch den informellen Charakter dieses Treffens hier in Berlin aufrechtzuerhalten. Wir wollen über schwierige Themen sprechen. Wir werden uns auseinandersetzen mit den Entwicklungen in Belarus. Wir haben festgestellt, dass in den letzten Tagen die Repressionen, die von Lukaschenko ausgehen, noch einmal verschärft worden sind. Deshalb müssen wir uns als Europäische Union heute darüber unterhalten, wie wir den Druck auf Lukaschenko verstärken können. Das heißt, die Sanktionen, die wir bereits auf den Weg bringen, ob sie ausreichen oder ob aufgrund der aktuellen Ereignisse wir dort noch einmal nachlegen müssen. Wir werden auch über die Türkei reden. Wir sind nach wie vor sehr besorgt über die Entwicklung im östlichen Mittelmeer, über die Eskalationen und Provokationen, die es dort gibt. Ich habe bei meinen Gesprächen in Athen und auch in Ankara für Eskalation geworben. Wir werden sehen, wie sich die Dinge entwickeln am Ende dieses Monats, wo die Schiffe sich hinbewegen werden. Und wir werden auch hier dafür werben, die Voraussetzungen dafür zu schaffen, dass die Türkei und Griechenland direkt miteinander ihre Probleme lösen und alles dazu beitragen, dass es zu keiner militärischen Konfrontation kommt. Ich freue mich sehr darüber, dass der israelische Außenminister meine Einladung zu unserem Außenministertreffen nach Berlin angenommen hat. Es ist die erste Auslandsreise von Gabi Ashkenazi als Außenminister Israels, dass diese nach Deutschland führt, dass diese zu einem Außenministertreffen der EU führt, freut mich außerordentlich. Durch die Tatsache, dass die israelische Regierung die Annexionspläne suspendiert hat, die Tatsache, dass die Emirate mit Israel diplomatische Beziehungen aufnehmen werden, glaube ich, haben wir ein Momentum, das wir nutzen wollen, bei dem wir mithelfen wollen, dass es einen Normalisierungsprozess zwischen der arabischen Welt und Israel geben wird. Und dazu wird uns Gabi Ashkenazi sicherlich einiges zu berichten haben.
Christian Feld, ARD Fernsehen. Herr Minister, eine Frage zum Thema Griechenland, Türkei haben Sie schon angesprochen. Da gibt es sehr scharfe Töne von Präsident Erdogan und gleichzeitig gibt es ein Militärmanöver, an dem auch unter anderem Frankreich mit dabei ist. Wie zuversichtlich sind Sie, dass es die EU es schafft, eine einheitliche Linie bei diesem Thema zu finden und dann in einem zweiten Schritt auf eine Linie mit der Türkei zu kommen?
Wir brauchen eine diplomatische Lösung für diesen Konflikt. Das haben mir beide Seiten diese Woche in Ankara und in Athen gesagt. Niemand will diesen Konflikt mit Kriegsschiffen im östlichen Mittelmeer lösen. Dann müssen auch Gespräche geführt werden, und zwar direkte zwischen Athen und Ankara. Die Situation ist nach wie vor sehr schwierig. Die Voraussetzungen für diese Gespräche sind, dass die Manöver, die es gibt im östlichen Mittelmeer, beendet werden. Dazu kann jede Seite ihren Beitrag leisten und damit den Raum schaffen für diplomatische Gespräche. Denn sicherlich werden sich die Parteien nicht an den Tisch setzen, wenn sich Kriegsschiffe im östlichen Mittelmeer gegenüberstehen.
Von der Deutschen Presseagentur. Herr Minister, einige Mitgliedstaaten sind der Ansicht, dass die EU sofort mit weiteren Sanktionen stärkeren Druck auf die Türkei ausüben muss. Es steht sogar die Drohung im Raum, dass es keine Belarus-Sanktionen geben kann, solange es keine neuen Türkei-Sanktionen gibt. Können Sie uns sagen, wie Sie bei dem Treffen jetzt mit diesem Konflikt umgehen wollen? Und eine zweite Frage, wenn ich darf. Aus Sicht der Bundesregierung, ist das, was die Türkei derzeit im Mittelmeer macht, sind diese Probebohrungen mit internationalem Recht vereinbar oder sind sie das nicht?
Es gibt viele Rechtsfragen, die geklärt werden müssen. Möglicherweise, das wäre der einfachste Weg, sie auch von den zuständigen Gerichten klären zu lassen. Auch das ist ein Thema in diesen Gesprächen. Wir können nicht Konflikte wie den in Belarus mit denen zwischen Griechenland und der Türkei im östlichen Mittelmeer zusammenlegen. Wenn wir damit anfangen, werden wir handlungsunfähig als Europäische Union. Es ist ohnehin beabsichtigt, dass es einen Europäischen Rat geben soll zu dem Thema Türkei, der in den kommenden Wochen stattfinden wird. Und ich bin mir ziemlich sicher, dass bis dahin eine Lösung gefunden werden muss für den Konflikt zwischen der Türkei und Griechenland. Und wenn das nicht der Fall ist, glaube ich, dass das für den Dialog zwischen der EU und der Türkei außerordentlich problematisch wäre. Und deshalb werden wir versuchen, bis dahin alle Möglichkeiten zu nutzen, um für die Krise, die es dort gibt, eine diplomatische Lösung zu finden.
Richard Josviak, Radio Free Europe, a question in English, if I may. Do you think that what's happened to Mr. Navalny will in any way force Germany and the EU to recalibrate your policy towards Russia? And quickly on Belarus, do you think that a sanction of 15, 20 people is enough right now?
Ob das genug ist, darüber werden wir heute sprechen. Wir haben festgestellt, dass die Ankündigung dieser Sanktionen, und wir haben sie ja auch bereits formal auf den Weg gebracht, zu keiner Verhaltensänderung in Belarus geführt haben. Deshalb wird es darum gehen, ob wir dort noch einmal möglicherweise nachlegen müssen, um den Druck auf Belarus und Lukaschenko zu erhöhen. Bei Herrn Nawalny haben wir sehr deutlich gemacht, dass wir weitere Aufklärung wollen. Wir können von hier aus sehr schwer die Beweise dafür finden, ob und von wem diese Vergiftung durchgeführt worden ist. Ich glaube, Russland hat ein eigenes Interesse daran, dass die Dinge aufgeklärt werden. Und deshalb haben wir auch die Erwartung an Russland, dass sie dazu einen Beitrag leistet im Rahmen von Ermittlungen, die dort angestellt werden müssen vor Ort. Wenn das nicht der Fall ist, wird es auch für Moskau nicht möglich sein, die Anschuldigungen, die es gibt, aus dem Weg zu räumen. Und deshalb erwarten wir nach wie vor von Moskau, dass von dort aus ein Teil dazu beigetragen wird, dass die Dinge aufgeklärt werden. Ansonsten werden Vermutungen und Spekulationen im Raum stehen bleiben, die das Verhältnis zwischen Deutschland und Russland, aber auch das Verhältnis zwischen der EU und Russland sicherlich nicht besser machen werden, sondern weiter belasten werden. Okay.
Morning, Harep. How are you doing?
Good morning to all of you. How are you?
Good morning. Peter Fritz, Austrian television. Harep, it looks like foreign ministers are engaging in a kind of competition as to who can bar more people from entering the territory, who can issue the more severe restrictions. Is that what the united Europe should be about?
Well, let me talk about the substance. We are going to talk about very important issues. We are going to talk about Belarus, the situation in Eastern Mediterranean. Everybody is expecting which kind of decisions we will propose about sanctions. We are going to discuss that. As you know, it's an informal meeting. It cannot take decisions, only political proposals that will be developed later. And I think the discussion will be important because the level of the sanctions, to whom to sanction, is something that has to be fully considered. We are also going to talk the relationship with Russia, which is also a difficult issue, especially after the alleged poisoning of this opposition leader. So it's going to be an important meeting, and it will require all of us to be together, because by video conference, these kind of things are very difficult to discuss. Thank you.
One microphone.
Okay, good. Yes, hello, good.
Mr. Kofod, are you worried that Greece or Turkey might block sanctions against Belarus in order to get EU sanctions on Turkey?
No, I look forward to a very good and fruitful discussion on how we can have an effective common foreign security policy from the EU side. And there's no doubt that Europe stand behind the people of Belarus that is asking for free and fair election, asking for non-violence, and also supporting civil society that is standing up against these kind of atrocities we see. It's very important. Each and every person, each and every country in Europe has the right to freedom and democracy, and I hope we will get that discussion going.
Are you fearing a linkage between the two sanction regimes?
No, I think we will. I think we have a perfect way of sorting this out, so I'm not worried. Thank you.
Minister, in your opinion, should
jetzt hier auf alle Fälle hinkommt, richtig? So könnt ihr das machen, ne? dass er dich nicht trifft. Hören Sie mir, ja. Du stehst so, er steht so. Ja, das müsste jetzt aber funktionieren. Ja, nicht nur bitte.
Good afternoon. It is a pleasure for me to be here in Berlin today after a long series of online dialogue with my colleagues, foreign ministers of the member states of the European Union. We have a very challenging agenda for today and for tomorrow. We will now have an informal lunch with the Foreign Minister of Israel, Mr. Ashkenazi, and we will discuss the situation in the region and the perspectives of the EU-Israel relations. I will express Romania's support for the enhancement of the relationship between the European Union and Israel, for the resuming of the meetings of the EU-Israel Association Council. And I will also discuss about the Middle East peace process and express the position of Romania, which is well known to the sense that we support a long, just, long-lasting solution to the Middle East peace process based on the two-state formula, which is the only solution which will respond to the needs of the parties, states that should live together side by side in peace and security. We will also discuss today about Belarus. Romania is very worried about the situation in Belarus. We have expressed our concerns about the abuses of the regime against the protesters and against the opposition. For instance, we are very much concerned about the recent detainment of representatives of the Coordination Council of the opposition and other representatives of the protesters. And I will renew today Romania's call for targeted sanctions against those who are responsible for the election fraud and for the abuses against the protesters. According to the figures which are made available by the opposition, before the elections, around 1,500 people were arrested. After the elections, around 8,000 persons were arrested. They also mention a figure of 5 people who died during the protests, 600 wounded. And we shouldn't forget about the 37 political prisoners that are still imprisoned in Belarus, and we should continue to ask for their becoming free. At the same time, we will discuss about how to support the civil society in Belarus, and I will make the announcement that I have started the procedure for allotting 100,000 euros from Romania's International Assistance for Development funds in order to support the independent media and the civil society in Belarus. We will also discuss today about the growing tensions in East Mediterranean, and I will express the solidarity of Romania with Greece and Cyprus, and at the same time the appeal for calm, for de-escalation, for dialogue, for resuming the negotiations in order to find a solution in conformity with the legitimate interests of the parties and, of course, in accordance with the international law. We will also discuss tomorrow about the EU-Russia relations, and this is a very challenging strategic topic. We will, together with the External Action Service, examine the assessment of the implementation of the 5 principles that we have agreed together in 2016, and we will see how this implementation took place. And we hope that this analysis will confirm our principled approach and also the fact that we need a balanced implementation of all these 5 principles. We will also discuss tomorrow about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic from the geopolitical point of view on the EU role and influence as a global actor. And we will analyze, of course, which are those tendencies which were prompted by this crisis, which are those tendencies which were accelerated by this crisis, and which of them are in favor of the interests and objectives of the European Union, and which are those which are running contrary to the objectives and interests of the European Union, in order to see what measures the EU should take in order to achieve its objectives. So it will be a very challenging agenda, and I'm looking forward to the debates with my colleagues. Thank you.
Minister, do you want to see Mr. Lukashenko on the sanctions list?
We will discuss about the sanctions list. As I mentioned, we support a comprehensive sanctions list, and this is a matter for debate for today. Thank you.
Hi, how are you? So it's great to be here in Germany, in Berlin. I love this city, but we came here not only to admire the capital of Germany, but to work. There are important issues on the table of our agenda, and I want to thank Heiko Maas for inviting our new Israeli colleague. It's a very good opportunity to hear from him about recent developments in the region. Middle East peace process is key. I represent Slovakia, and for us at this moment, the issue number one is the situation in Belarus. I believe the European Union has reacted timely, both foreign ministers and heads of state. We have a clear position. The elections were manipulated and falsified, and therefore response has to come, and I'm looking forward to having an extensive discussion about targeted measures. By targeted, I mean it's not against people of Belarus. It is important that we respond to those individuals in the Belarusian regime who have been involved and engaged in violence against protesters and in falsification of elections. I too want to say that what we see there is not a geopolitical struggle. It is, however, a struggle of peace-loving people, and we have to assist them. We will not assist them by telling them whom they should choose to lead their country, but we cannot keep just distant from what we see there, how people are beaten and they are deprived of the very basic parameters of democracy. Two important discussions we will be having about the developments of the East Mediterranean, and also about our relationship and future strategy towards Russia. Thank you.
Chris Korczok, do you think that it's enough to sanction only 15, 20 people in Belarus, or do you think it should be more?
It's not the question of quantity, but we have to, no. I remember many years ago we have had more than 200. But I believe it is important that it is targeted, so it's clear that we individually pinpoint those people who have been involved in the unacceptable behavior.
Does that include
Thank you.
Lukashenko?
Well, we'll be certainly that will be part of the discussion. Thank you.
Pandemie hat uns noch im Griff, und was wir als gemeinsames Ziel haben, einen Rückfall in März, April und einen vollen Lockdown zu verhindern. Ja, es mag vielleicht auf den ersten Blick wirken, dass die Staaten unterschiedlich reagieren, aber Gesundheitspolitik ist eine nationale Kompetenz. Es war ja auch so, dass im März, April unterschiedliche Staaten unterschiedliche Politiken verfolgt haben und Ansätze verfolgt haben. Wesentlich für mich ist aber, dass wir weiterhin eine einheitliche Linie gegenüber Drittstaaten verfolgen, weil das ist doch für den Schengen-Raum sehr wesentlich. Aber ganz offen, das ist nicht das große Thema dieses informellen Treffens.
Wird es Sanktionen geben gegen Weißrussland schon bei diesem Treffen?
Also Beschlüsse kann es ja nicht geben. Ich bin mir sehr froh über das Optionenpapier, das vorliegt und das hier gezielte Sanktionen vorschlägt, so wie ich es auch gefordert habe, gegen jene Personen, die für die Gewalt auf der Straße, für die Verletzung des Völkerrechts und des humanitären Rechts verantwortlich sind. Und wir müssen einfach zur Kenntnis nehmen, dass wir hier eigentlich ein demokratiepolitisches Drama gerade verfolgen können. Und es muss klar sein, Lukaschenko und der Regierung, dass sie einen Kurswechsel vollziehen müssen. Das Volk will die Zukunft. Und es darf nicht sein, dass die Politik in Minsk in der Vergangenheit verharrt. Und was das Wichtigste ist, dass die Gewalt unmittelbar endet und dass die willkürlich Festgenommenen alle ausnahmslos freigelassen werden.
Es gibt Gerüchte, dass Griechenland und Zypern nur zustimmen könnten einem Sanktionsbeschluss zu Weißrussland, wenn es auch Sanktionen gegen die Türkei gibt, wegen der Gasbohrungen im Mittelmeer.
Also wir haben beide Debatten. Es zeigt sich ja, dass trotz Covid-19 einfach die Außenpolitik nicht stehen geblieben ist. Stichwort Libyen, Stichwort östliches Mittelmeer, Libanon, Belarus. Und ich glaube, es ist ganz wesentlich, dass wir hier Solidarität zeigen mit Zypern und Griechenland. Die Türkei missachtet eigentlich jegliche Konvention, fordert Europa geradezu heraus. Und es ist klar, das östliche Mittelmeer ist nicht die südchinesische See. Und wir dürfen nicht zulassen, dass sich das so dort entwickelt. Das Völkerrecht muss die Basis sein. Und ich bin sehr dafür, dass wir eine wirkliche Grundsatzdebatte zur Türkei führen. Ich glaube, langsam sollte auch der letzte Träumer in Europa aufwachen, was die Beziehungen EU-Türkei betrifft. Und wir brauchen hier einen Reality-Check und die Europäische Union sollte eine klare Kante zeigen, wenn sich Ankara so verhält und eine solche Diktion und solche Maßnahmen an den Tag legt, wie es derzeit der Fall ist. Danke sehr.
Ganz kurze Nachfrage noch. Was die Türkei derzeit im Mittelmeer macht, verstößt das aus österreichischer Sicht ganz klar gegen internationales Recht oder ist es vielleicht Interpretationssache?
Verstößt es gegen
internationales Recht aus österreichischer Perspektive, diese Probebohrungen in einem Gebiet, das Griechenland für sich beansprucht?
Also, was es in Wirklichkeit letzten Endes braucht hier, ist natürlich einen Dialog zwischen den Parteien. Die Türkei hat sich den entsprechenden Konventionen nicht angeschlossen. Das ist einfach ein Faktum. Und das Seerecht, das wissen wir, auch die Frage, wo ist sozusagen die Kontinentalplatte und wo enden die Hoheitsgebiete, ist umstritten. Aber die Art und Weise, wie man hier versucht, Fakten zu schaffen und zu sagen, wir gehen weiter und man hat das Gefühl, man hat ein immer größeres Pulverfass vor Augen, wir müssen diese Lunte ziehen. Die Anzahl an militärischen Schiffen momentan in Ostmittelmeer bedingt ja fast zwangsläufig, dass es irgendwann zu Zwischenfällen kommen wird und das ist bitte vor unserer Haustür. Also noch einmal, die Zustände, wie wir sie in der südchinesischen See sehen, wollen wir nicht im Mittelmeer wiederholt sehen. Danke.
Microphone here. Sorry. Okay. Yeah. I'm very thankful to the German presidency and my colleague Heiko Maas for organizing this physical council. And I'm very happy that Gabi Ashkenazi is here today. Bulgaria was always calling for a regular dialogue between European Union and Israel. And after the, I think, historical peace deal reached between Israel and the United Arab Emirates, it's a very important moment for us to discuss with Israel how they see way forward for achieving peace and security in the region. And I think it's also a very important day to give a clear sign to the Belarusian civil society that we stand behind them and we are going to support their attempts for democratic and peaceful state. Thank you.
Here? This microphone.
I think European Union needs to have a determined position on the Belarusian political crisis. Estonia and Latvia have agreed to form also our national targeted sanctions list addressing these officials of Belarusian regime who are responsible for either electoral fraud or using violence against peaceful protesters. The European Union needs to act, to give a clear and strong voice also about different parties' political dialogue, which should lead to the new and free presidential elections. We are going to discuss tomorrow also strategic relations towards Russia of EU. Estonia's clear understanding is that we need to have a consistency of Russia towards Russia, and let me also stress that it is important that we will pass through independent investigation on poisoning of Alexei Navalny. Thank you.
Mr. Renslow, do you really think you can rely on Russia to have an independent investigation on Mr. Navalny? Do you trust them that they can do this?
I think there should be a proposal made towards Russia. If Russia denies it, then I think European Union countries need to find a new way to pass through independent investigation as much as it is objectively possible.
Are you disappointed about the numbers we're discussing when it comes to Belarus sanctions? We're talking about 15, 20 people. Do you think that's enough?
Well, I think what is very important is need to act immediately. So the timing is critical, and therefore, as I said, Estonia and Latvia agreed to have a joint list of national sanctions, and we are going to discuss and address surely the list of sanctioned persons. And I believe if we agree consensus on targeted sanctions in European Union, it needs to be implemented without any delay, and we should be ready also to prolong the list, surely.
Do you want to see Mr. Lukashenko on the EU list?
Sorry?
Do you want to see Mr. Lukashenko on the European Union's list?
My personal opinion is Lukashenko surely deserves that. My understanding is that Lukashenko has lost the mandate, and I think the sanctionings would be appropriate. Thank you.
From the agenda of the meeting is most interesting. Belarus, of course, is one of the key issues to be discussed, but also the EU-Russia policy is extremely interesting at this moment. Of course, the case of Navalny and others are putting a certain shadow on this meeting.
Belgium. Okay, your foreign minister now? Your foreign minister now? My foreign minister? Belgium.
Don't have a government since 500 days now.
But still, let's see if you recognize him.
Им будет сегодня оценено не пас.
Ой, да.
Today's meeting is very important. I'm looking forward to a substantial discussion with my colleagues. As you know, one of the issues to be discussed is EU-Turkey relations in light of Turkey's illegal and provocative actions in the Eastern Mediterranean against two EU member states, against the interests of the European Union. Europe's credibility is at stake. The European Union, a union of 27 member states, must stand up for international values, for a global international order based on the values and principles of the European Union. EU solidarity must be real and substantial. Thank you very much.
Some European Union member states are blocking a quick decision on additional restrictive measures against Turkey. Can you agree on sanctions against Belarus as long as there's no decision on...
We are not in favor of double standards. I said about EU values and principles. And there is no ambiguity on those values and principles. So it's very important to protect also the credibility of the European Union. Thank you very much.
Of support to people of Belarus, first of all, and also a message to those outgoing leadership who committed, maybe even allegedly committed crime. If not, they're definitely abuse of rights of their citizens. And what we witnessed through social media, it's really unbelievable atrocities, and definitely cannot stay unaccountable. So we have to issue sanctions, and the scope of the sanctions should be also substantial. I would compare what was after 2010 elections, and definitely that's the least we can do. Also, we have to support civil society, support victims of repressions, and I believe fund for that purpose could be established, what we discussed during previous Foreign Affairs Ministerial Council. So definitely this is something I believe we will exchange with the colleagues and will come up with a common position.
So you are not happy with the speculation that there will only be 15, 20 people who will be sanctioned by the EU?
If these speculations will appear to be true, I believe it's really too symbolic. It's definitely not sufficient. It's not could be serious. It's not serious reaction. And I believe this is definitely something else is expected by, first of all, by Belarusian people, and definitely for ourselves. It has to do with the credibility of European Union, by the way, because it's happening on our borders. It's happening inside European borders, although country is not member of European Union, but I believe values are important, and we are talking not something what would be considered as intervention or invasion of domestic affairs. You know, brutality and all these actions cannot be covered by sovereignty or domestic affairs. So this is also important to know, because these values are really universal, and since we are not just by rhetoric, but also I believe we mean that these values should be defended. So I believe our behavior and statements should be appropriate.
And Lukashenko should be sanctioned, you think?
I believe yes, because he was sanctioned last time. Now what he does, he definitely leads himself to the stalemate, moral and political, and unfortunately also leaves leads his country to the stalemate and destroying remainings of sovereignty and independence, although by rhetoric he was always caring about that, but looks like in the practice he's doing otherwise.
And do you think that Germany should recalibrate its policy towards Russia now with what's happening with Navalny and so on?
we have to revisit our policies with the real glance at the things and not to be guided by wishful thinking. I was always saying lately that Russia is a factor but not a partner, unfortunately. So we should consider realistically what Russia does, and although potentially Russia is capable to manage crisis, but acts like creating crisis, and through this crisis trying to influence conflicts, be it Georgia in 2008, be it Crimea in 2014. And I have no doubt they would be reluctant to lose Belarus from, in their terminology, speaking spheres of influence. But it's really, the process could last for long, but minimum we should do, we have to support electoral committee, which is really established. And this committee is not seizing power, as was accused, but trying just to provide with the kind of process which will lead to the democratic process and free democratic elections. I believe it's not too much what they're demanding, and here we have to support them. Thank you.
I wanted to avoid you. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Rinkevich, the speculation about 15, 20 names for the Belarus sanctions. Do you think that's sufficient?
No, actually the Latvian government also is preparing not sanctions list, I would say travel bans, and we will publish it later. It will be more. I think that what we need to do, we need to send a very clear signal from the European Union to Belarus that what happened with election fraud and the crackdown is not acceptable, and the list needs to be more expanded and actually more convincing. We opt for efficient European response, and I think that we need to discuss this as we meet at the informal gathering later today. Thank you.
Minister, you want sanctions on Turkey? Mr. Rao, do you want more questions? Do you want more sanctions on Belarus? Mr. Rao, come and talk to us.
Hier stehen, also hier.
Du wolltest ja auch mal ins Fernsehen.
Du, das war nicht witzig gemeint. Ich habe der Liga mit gezeigt, wie klein musste mit meinem Mikro hier ausgerichtet ist. Nein, Jakob.
Mr. Sciarto, are you supporting sanctions on Belarus? Commissioner, when will the 53 million be ready for Belarus?
Good morning. Where should I stand?
By the microphone.
Good morning. Today we're here at the informal meeting of the Foreign Affairs Council. I'm happy to represent the Commission. We're going to be dealing with very heavy topics. First is going to be a discussion with the Israeli Foreign Minister. I welcome the fact that Israel has managed to, together with the US, broker an agreement with the United Arab Emirates. It is a welcome sign in the Middle East and for the peace process as well. And I also welcome the fact that in that there are very clear messages when it comes to the annexation. I also have a great interest in the discussion in relation to Belarus. As you have maybe followed, we had an informal European Council on that issue, and we also had Foreign Affairs Council meeting. Today we will be looking at the exact details of sanctioning. We are committed to introduce sanctions against those who have participated in the falsification of the elections, who have used violence against the people, and who have been putting to jail and oppressing the people in protest. We continue to stand by the Belarusian people. President von der Leyen has already announced that we are mobilizing 53 million euros to help the Belarusian people and to further facilitate that and make sure that the funds are getting to the people. We are ready to consider to involve in the implementation of these funds the National Coordination Council. This is a message I'm bringing today to the foreign ministers, and I hope that we can get agreement on this. And lastly, we are also discussing the very burning issue of the Eastern Mediterranean situation, where we see a major escalation and tension. On behalf of the Commission, I call on the Turkish authorities, especially, to help us to de-escalate and to lower the tension. Out of these tensions, nothing fruitful will come out, and we are risking, I think, long-term participation and partnership of Turkey in our joint efforts, and also the membership, the possible accession of Turkey is under a major question through these actions. So all these very difficult topics will be discussed. We are having a 2-day meeting, so it is not going to be an easy day for anybody.
When will the 53 million be ready for Belarus?
We can mobilize the funds very, very quickly. We're looking into the possibilities. Some of these funds are already available. Some would take a bit more time. We are allocating 2 million to those who have suffered injustice and violence by the police. That is 2 million euros. And I do hope that within a matter of days we can mobilize it.
But why is so much going to Corona support and not more to civil society and helping right now the people who are suffering?
Because Corona is also a topic in Belarus, and they are in a very poor state of protection. So if we do not allocate the sufficient funds for the Corona and for the healthcare sector, then we will also have a Corona crisis in the country. So we have to be vigilant about the Corona as well.
Is 15, 20 people, which is being talked about for the sanctions, is that really a substantial number, Belarus sanctions?
I wouldn't go into numbers. We will see today the names. We will see today the scope of the measures, and I think that the number you have mentioned is something that is considered. But member states are here to contribute to the debate. Thank you.
ganz genauso morgen wieder. Gut.